I mean, since you asked so nicely. Massive fire engulfs Navy Secretary's Colorama mansion in D.C., near Obama's residence. The ancestors are busy. The ancestors are busy. What we know. The blaze erupted just hours after firefighters responded to the same residence Monday night for an earlier fire.
And look, you already know on this channel we hold racist institutions accountable, because if we don't, who will? But before we start this video, if you don't like black people, black issues, black talks, get to stepping. The Colorama area in Washington, D.C. has a documented history of slavery, particularly with the Little family's ownership of the land. That included enslaved people. The area, including the Colorama Park, was part of the larger slaveholding estate owned by John Little. In 1860, Little owned 13 enslaved individuals, including 3 generations of the Prout family who worked on his cattle farm. Hortense Prout, one of the enslaved people, attempted to escape in 1861, a significant event that further highlighted the area's connection to the national debate about slavery. Make that make sense. And we'll get back into that story later on in this video. In the meantime, we have the Nottoway Plantation completely destroyed in fire. And these people was making $2.7 million a year from something they didn't even build, and have the audacity to call our people lazy. How, Sway? And then we have the Colorama Mansion, aka Plantation, aka the biggest big house. And I can't even lie, the ancestors been spinning, and I love that shit. Run a tape.
Right now in Northwest D.C. in the Colorama neighborhood, a massive house fire on Colorama Road has flared up again. And right now, nearby homes are being evacuated, and officials are telling people to avoid that area. Our Jacqueline Quinn live at the scene right now. Jacqueline, what's the latest?
Well, we were looking in to see whether a firefighter may have been hurt. There was a Mayday call for a firefighter, but as we got to the scene here and spoke with officials, they said that that firefighter was located safely, and that is why crews have resumed their work here, where you can still see, it's hard to see on this angle, but water still being sprayed onto the roof. But the entire structure had some kind of damage. We're told it's a total loss right now, but this broke out around 6:05 this morning. DC Fire says it was a 2-alarm fire here. All 3 floors of this large mansion-style kind of home were involved, or engulfed, I should say. And again, there was that Mayday call for the firefighter, but that firefighter was located and found safe. But this building had to be evacuated during that time. Now, we spoke with a neighbor who says he called this in and he was aware that there was a fire here last night. Of course, he has questions as to what happened, but let's listen in on the interview we just grabbed.
It's very sad. That was an amazing house. I live across the street from that house, and yeah, it's very sad because it's not something you can get back, and it's historical and everything else. So yeah, I live in the neighborhood. It's unfortunate, but it's sad, but yes.
So this is a live look right now. We still have a lot of crews out here. I was told about 100 firefighters here on the scene. And if I can get Deanna to turn around, you can see the response and the road closures down here in this neighborhood right now. Again, some of the neighbors concerned about what happened. Why did this fire pop back up when they thought it had been out last night? That initial fire broke out around 8 last night. Now, the home, as we understand it, was empty because it was under renovations. It had recently been sold. That's what I was told by some of the officials out here and the neighbors. They were aware that that was happening too, so they consider this a devastating loss for the entire neighborhood. We'll stick around here and see if we can talk with more folks, but for now I'll send it back to you guys.
And how ironic they want to call it a mansion instead of calling it what it really is, a plantation. But I told y'all, all these people on the same team, they gonna always have each other back. The news outlets, the politicians, the plantation owners, the museum owners, they never go tell you the truth. Tell me I'm lying. And they love to say black people live in the past, get over slavery, it's over, it's in the past. But if you really sit back, shut up, and use your common sense, you'll realize these people always in the past. Let's break it down. In 2025, who's still reenacting scenes from the Civil War that they lost? They are. In 2025, who's still holding on? Who's still doing tours at plantations? They are. In 2025, who's making millions on these plantations? The same plantation our ancestors were tortured on, they was essayed on, they was murdered on. Who's making millions on these plantations? They are. And in 2025, on these same plantations our ancestors was tortured on, was murdered on, was essayed on. Who's having weddings on these plantations? They are. I can go on and on. Tell me I'm lying. On the Colorama plantation, enslaved people were treated with brutality and faced with harsh conditions. They were considered property, denied basic rights, and subjected to physical punishment for any perceived transgression. The plantation's owners had absolute control over their lives. Make that make sense. So first, y'all stripped our ancestors of their last name, but that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. Y'all separated them from their family members, and y'all racist people really thought that you can sell this place for $18.5 million and our ancestors will let that slide? Hell no. Even your firefighters was falling through elevators trying to put that fire out. Run the tape.
It's 6 o'clock this morning. We were called back to the scene and found the house on fire again. The units quickly began to suppress the fire, and early in the incident, a firefighter fell into an elevator shaft and declared a mayday. That firefighter was quickly rescued by other firefighters, and he is just fine. He is not injured at all and has not gone to the hospital, but he has been checked out and we'll keep an eye on it. Ultimately, this morning, the fire's gone to a second alarm and a couple extra special alarms, bringing 125 firefighters and 30 units to the scene.
And see, in your Caucasian education, they won't tell you this. They won't tell you that it was a lot of our ancestors that ran away. It was a lot of our ancestors that fought back. Because if they tell you that our ancestors fought back, they ran away, you will get bright ideas. They don't want you to get no ideas. They don't want you to fight back against the system. They don't want you to break out of prison. They want you to just surrender all the time. So they'll never tell you that a lot of our ancestors fought back. A lot of our ancestors ran away and they were successful. But check out this gangster shit. And this article is by the DCist. It was published November 26, 2018. Hortense Prout escaped slavery in Adams Morgan 157 years ago. Now a nearby park commemorates her. The daring escape of a woman who was enslaved in DC is now being commemorated with a wayside marker in Adams Morgan Park. The new marker was installed at Colorama Park in mid-November, commemorating the 1861 escape of 20-year-old slave Hortense Prout from the owner John Little, who lived in a manor house that occupied 56 acres estate. He owned 17 slaves. Prout's escape was noted in the June 17, 1861 edition of the Evening Star. A fugitive, a slave woman belonging to Mr. John Little, having eloped, Mr. Little made a diligent search. Every opportunity is afforded loyal citizens of loyal states to recover their fugitive slaves. Make that make sense. I'm going to put the rest of that article in the description, but she later on was arrested. She went to prison, but she was free when Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Act and all that type of stuff. But check this out. It only took one person in that family. Remember, I told you in the beginning, 3 generations of her family were slaves on their plantation. And one day she said, hell no, I can't take it no more. At only 20 years old. So you have to step back and use your common sense. Why you think they hide our history? Why you think a lot of times we find out our real history in our 30s, in our late 20s, in our 40s? Because they don't want you to be 20, 19, 18, 22 years old. And you read a story about a black woman escaping a plantation that her family been on for 3 generations. That's going to give you courage. And I told y'all earlier, they don't want you to have no bright ideas. So that's why they always hide our history. And our history is so important because when you know where you come from, when you know what your people been through and what they overcame, it's going to give you courage. It's going to give you energy. I told y'all the game is cold. And see, before I go, I have to calm down and say this. I really have to say this. Nothing has changed since 1861 to 2025. You have to think about it. They still using the word fugitive from 1861 to describe a slave, a black person, because mainly that's who they call fugitives. So you have to really sit back, shut up, and use your common sense. Prison is used for rehabilitation, not slavery. So I don't blame those prisoners from escaping. I don't blame them. But all I ask is, when you get out, when you escape, don't hurt anyone. Don't harm anyone. I hope you learn your lesson, because when I saw this story of this plantation burning in DC, I thought about one person, Kia Duggins. Kia Duggins fought for our people in DC. When she was alive, she fought for them. She was taking Washington, DC to trial because the way they were treating our people in the prison system. And ironically, she was assassinated on that DC flight. But guess what? Our ancestors not dead. Our ancestors don't sleep. Our ancestors don't forget. Ashe, I'm out. But before I go, in the words of Usher, let it burn.
Operation Division 2 Special Ops.